Dave, Vice Chair Smith, back on board. Is everything okay now?
Delegate Paul Begay back on too.
Delegate Stewart's back on.
Good evening, everyone. Time now is 7:04. I think we're up and live. We're live streaming again. Thank everybody who's still listening in on the World Wide Web. If you're on Facebook, Vimeo, YouTube, thank you very much for being part of the Navajo Nation's governmental process. Other than that, I think we're recording live here now too as well. Right? Hey, with that, let's go ahead and move on down. We did do a recess for 10 minutes, so I need to go ahead and do a roll call. Bobby, mind doing a roll call?
Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay present.
Honorable Paul Begay is present. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton is present.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton is present. Honorable Amber Knapp-Bakati. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Mark Freeland. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Halona is present.
Honorable Pernell Halona is present. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez is here.
Honorable Rick Nez is present. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater is present.
Honorable Carl Slater is present. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Present.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. is present. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Present.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. is present. Honorable Charlene So.
Present.
Honorable Charlene So is present. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Eugene So.
Present. Thank you.
Honorable Eugene So is present. Honorable Otto So.
Here.
Honorable Otto So is present. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Edison Wanika.
Here.
Honorable Edison Wanika is present. Honorable Edmund Yazi. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, vote green. I'm present here.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair is present. Honorable Almer Begay. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Amber Knaz-Bakrati. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Mark Freeland. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
Yeah, I got that. Everything that you do.
Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Daniel So.
Present.
Honorable Daniel So is present. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Edmund Yazi.
Yeah.
Anyway, I put the tape off.
Okay, with that, there's 14 members present.
Henyo's here.
14 members present. We have enough for a quorum. That, colleagues, let's go ahead and continue on back. I interrupted the panel. Honorable Halona, so I'll come back to you. There was questions and then we can go from there.
Okay, Speaker, I think we were, Melvin Harrison was on the line. Back on, Melvin?
Yes, sir. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you. We got you. Go ahead, continue with that as far as the elections in Arizona. Just wrap it up.
Okay. I was saying that one of the challenges that we faced at the election office is that the primary is in one physical year in August. So then the fiscal year ends in September. Then the general is in the next fiscal year, is in November. So that's one of the challenges we've always faced around physical or budget through the budget or budget matters. But and now I recall what Honorable Crowdy was asking about was the chapters, and I think that's something Mr. Morris can answer more readily. Is I believe the chapters are going to be open, but Mr. Morris is working with community development, Dr. Pearl Yellowman, on making sure that if these chapter houses are going to be available in the state of Arizona for the Arizona primary. So, Mr. or Delegate Halona, I don't know if you'd like to have Mr. Morris answer more, but yeah, I can. Delegate, I don't care.
Okay, Mr. Rodriguez Morris, are you on there? Back on?
Yes, good evening, sir. Thank you very much again, and Honorable Speaker Damon, as well as honorable members of the Naabik'iyati Committee. With regards to ongoing work with the state of Arizona, right now, some of the things that we're looking at, we are working closely with DOJ as well as the community development to ensure that chapters will be open. I've had legal counsel, Mr. Benson Begay, primarily working with them. And the big things are to ensure that polling sites on the Navajo Nation will be open for the primary and general election. A majority of the assessments have been done, and now it's just a matter of the county making contacts with the chapters. So that work continues. We've also been assisting where we can with recruiting poll workers for the polling sites as well, wherein we are doing what we can to assist the counties in identifying and locating poll workers. That's one thing that we're working with. We are, as stated before, we are working with DCD and the DOJ in regards to the work with Arizona. There also is there was some discussion on Navajo translators for the polling sites for the primary and general election. The Human Rights Commission is not overseeing that, but they were involved in those discussions as well. And what we understand is that the counties do have their own manuals that they have developed in past years. So those are discussions that are ongoing, and work continues with regards to providing Navajo translators. The group is also working to ensure that the counties comply with house orders of the Navajo Nation. That's been one of the biggest issues that we've been discussing. In addition to that, they've been disclosing as to how they would proceed forward with having PPEs, disinfectants, sanitations, and alternative means of voting, either voting trailers or alternative methods of voting as well. So this work continues. We've had numerous meetings with the Secretary of State's office as well as the liaison as well in addressing all these issues. And primarily, this work has been done with Arizona. It really there's been some discussion that started with Utah, and we did work with New Mexico. They had their primaries back in June, and I do believe we'll continue to work with them just as we are with Arizona. So they're also the state of Arizona was looking at their voter registration. That's one thing that they've been inquiring about, and they've been working through primarily DOJ in ensuring that they comply with the health orders and as to how they would go about voter registration. So if anything, the work continues with NEA, and we're doing what we can to assist the state with regards to their elections. And I think one thing that distinguishes the state elections, the Navajo elections, is they have adequate funding. They were also given an additional $9 million recently, I think within the last 2 weeks, to to use toward setting up polling sites on the reservation. Thank you.
Honorable Luna?
I don't have
Honorable
anything else to add to that, Speaker.
Okay. That, colleagues. I don't have anything else and no one else in the queue. Any more comments, questions? Once.
Speaker, Dr. Monica.
Going to Honorable Wanika.
Let them vote.
Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable Wanika, go ahead.
Yes, Speaker. I want to go ahead and vote on this too, but I just have a concern in reference to some of the things that Alma Brigade said in reference to the rights of the people. In that respect, hello, am I still on?
Yes, you're still on.
We hear you.
Yes, we're here.
Okay. In respect to what he said about the voting rights, and some years back, the election was canceled for 1 year, and one of the delegates said there was no complaints or anything like that. Out of as far as legally, there was no complaints filed, but there were complaints at the chapter. Officials that remained in office for a year were criticized by the community members, telling them that you're in that position without our vote. So ina daya nilo ana sunta ko na daya nila EPI that all extended life in ana sunta. But no, I had to go to quite a few chapters to explain to the community members that the reason why it was postponed for a year and the proper authority did that extension. Another thing is talking about voting rights. If we extend it for 1 year, are we taking that 1 year the people's vote is right? The people's right to vote. I don't know what's going on. Can you still hear me? Hello?
We can still hear you.
Somebody's phone is not on mute.
Mute your phone. Go ahead, Edison.
Okay, so the people's right, if we extend it for 1 year, are we violating the people's right to vote for the choice of their people also? I need to think about that, because that's what we're going to be doing. According to the chapter, they put up that no, we didn't vote for you to be in that position. And I had to go to quite a few chapters, like I said, to explain to them the reason why that happened. And then based on Mark Freeland, how can you guarantee, man? There's no question we can't guarantee it. But the thing is, like Chairman So said, on November the 3rd, our people is going to be at the polls voting for county elections. If we really want to guarantee the safety of the people, then we should go after the 3 states and tell them to cancel their elections also. So the better thing to do would be to work with the counties to ensure the safety of the people. I just want to reiterate that. And then Delegate Crowdy, I agree with what she said. Accountability of any aid. There's no question that we should have been ready to vote on next month on the 4th, August the 4th. There's no reason why we had to be going through this. Annie, she blames the election office. And Chairman Hinyu and I did our best to get him ready, but we had a hard time with the election office. And Annie Crowdy is right. It's like we're bailing them out. But it's our responsibility when the people of the nation gets in a situation
That's the reason why we were elected as delegates, to try to resolve this, and that's exactly what we're doing. And we have to do that. So, and I think the best thing we can do, if we're not to violate the right of the people to vote, is to let them vote on November the 3rd, so that we don't take away their rights to vote for 1 year. Thank you.
That, I don't have anybody else in the queue. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Board, board, vote on legislation 0152-20.
Honorable Elmer Begay.
Vote red.
Honorable Elmer Begay votes red. Honorable Paul Begay.
Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Kanaz-Bakrati.
Delegate Amber Kanaz-Bakrati votes red. Thank you.
Honorable Amber Kanaz-Bakrati votes red. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.
I vote green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Freeland votes red. Thank you.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes red. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Halona votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
Henyo votes green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater. Honorable Raymond Smith.
Green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
Hi. Before I vote, my phone just died. Which legislation for clarification?
It's legislation 0152-20. It's the overriding legislation for CJN-49-20. This is the main motion.
Okay. I will vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
I'll vote red.
Honorable Eugene So votes red. Honorable Otto So.
Green.
Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Wanika.
Green.
Honorable Edison Wanika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Speaker with a vote of 15 yeas and 4 nays.
Aye, colleagues. 15 in favor, 4 opposed. Chair not voting, motion carries. Moving forward, this legislation's
Speaker,
final
question.
destination is the Navajo Nation Council. That, I heard somebody saying speaker.
Speaker, what was the vote?
15 in favor, 4 opposed, and chair not voting. Motion carried. Moving on.
Thank you, colleagues.
Moving on, colleagues.
Speaker.
Yes.
Question, Speaker. Eugene.
Eugene, so go ahead.
So we voted, we override the president's veto. Does that mean we're just giving only half of a right to the people to vote only the general instead of both? We violated the rights to one primary election. Thank you.
Honorable Eugene, so what happens now is that this legislation has passed Naabik'iyati committee. This legislation has to go to Navajo Nation Council, and Navajo Nation Council summer session is set for next week. So most likely this will probably be one of the first items on the agenda that we can go ahead and start a discussion on Tuesday. And the reason why that this legislation will be the first, one of the first, is because this is a 2/3 vote in order for the legislation to completely get an override on legislation CJN-49-20. Once that passes, and if it does pass, there's that legislation will actually go into effect and into law. So yes, if the legislation is passed, then we would have just one election. If the legislation fails, and then it's basically giving that direction back to the Navajo Nation Board of Elections to come back with another recommendation. Honorable Eugene, so.
Thank you.
With that, colleagues.
Speaker. Continue.
Chairman Henia, go ahead.
Yes, no, what it does is it forces the election office to start stepping it up, double timing it to plan for the primary, and they don't have the money for it. They don't have $400 and something plus $1,000 to host a primary, unless if we pass the legislation that's on our agenda. It forces them to hold a primary right away. It forces them to double time it on candidate. So that if we do any other legislation, it's going to be crunch time. So that's why, hopefully that helps.
Okay, colleagues, let me see here. Thank you, Chairman Henia, for expressing much further into detail. With that, colleagues, moving on down. On to the next legislation, item number D, 0144-20. Splatero, if you could read it into the record.
Mr. Speaker, members of the council, tracking number 0144-20, an action relating to health, education, and human services, budget, finance, and resources and development, and Naabik'iyati committees and the Navajo Nation Council, approving and adopting the Navajo Nation CARES Fund expenditure plan for water projects, power line projects, and broadband telecommunication projects. You do have amendments. First amendment is from the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. Amendment 1, Amendment 0144-201, page 4, line 24, delete $30,920,636, and the attendant longhand verbal description of such, and insert $61,486,555, and the attendant longhand verbal description of such. 2, page 5, line 25, delete $30,920,636, and the attendant longhand verbal description of such, and $61,486,555, and the attendant longhand verbal description of such. 3, in Exhibit 5, replace the broadband section of the document with the title 2020-07-04 NTUAW CARES Act funding request, consisting of a summary sheet a 2020 detail, a 2021 detail, and a 2020 detail. This document has been forwarded to the legislative advisor. 4, page 5, line 6, after Exhibit 5, add the following language, semicolon, and the CARES Fund solar installation plan as outlined in Exhibit 6. The solar installation plan shall allow for 40 units for each delegate district and additional 40 units for veterans. 5, add the document titled 3.0 kW photovoltaic PV power refrigeration and water pump system as Exhibit 6. This document has been forwarded to the legislative advisor. 6, page 5, line 29, insert new paragraph E as follows. E, the Navajo Nation hereby approves and adopts the CARES Fund solar installation plan from the Navajo CARES Fund in the amount of $35,192,000 and allocates funding through the Division of Community Development to the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority. 7, Exhibit 3, replace the schedule provided by the Department of Water Resources with the new report provided by the Department of Water Resources. 8, on page 4, lines 6 and 7, delete $64,226,317 and the attendant longhand verbal description of such, and insert $117,035,518 and the attendant longhand verbal description of such. 9, on page 8, lines 8 through 10, delete $64,226,317 and the attendant longhand verbal description of such, and insert $117,035,518 and the attendant longhand verbal description of such. 10, update Exhibit 2 to reflect the new amount set forth in this amendment. 11, renumber or reletter succeeding paragraphs or sections accordingly if necessary. This amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment, which shall be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. Amendment 2 0144-20. 1, page 4, lines 6 through 7. Delete $64,226,317 and the attendant longhand verbal description of such, and insert $186,574,655 and the attendant longhand verbal description of such. 2, page 5, lines 8 through 10, delete $64,226,317 and the attendant longhand verbal description of such, and insert $186,574,655 and the attendant longhand verbal description of such. 3, in Exhibit 3, add 2 spreadsheets to the water project to include CARES Act wastewater projects listing in TU8. The document has been forwarded to the legislative advisor. 4, renumber or reletter succeeding paragraphs or sections accordingly if necessary, and this amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment, which shall be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. Has had it under consideration, report the same with the recommendation that legislation 0144-20 pass with 2 amendments and no directive, and therefore referred. Then you have amendments from the Resources and Development Committee. Amendment 1, solid waste. 1, page 1, line 15, amend the language as follows. Expenditure plans for solid waste, water project, water line projects. 2, page 5, line 29, add a new paragraph F to section 3 after the new paragraph E that was approved by the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. Reletter the 60 remaining paragraphs in section 3, amend as follows. F, the Navajo Nation hereby approves and adopts total funding for the solid waste expenditure plan from the Navajo Nation CARES Fund in the amount of $41,735,786.50 and allocate the funding to the Navajo Nation Environmental Protection Agency for funding the project set forth in Exhibit 7. 3, page 6, line 14, amend the language as follows. Purposes set forth in Exhibits 3, 4, 5, 6, and overstrike 5_7. 4, page 7, line 2 and 3, amend the language as follows. Expenditure plan, CARES Fund Power Line Project Expenditure Plan, overstrike, and the CARES Fund Broadband and Telecommunication Project Expenditure Plan, and the CARES Solid Waste Expenditure Plan. 5, page 9, line 12, amend the language as follows. Navajo CARES Fund Water Projects, Power Line Projects, Solid Waste Projects. And 6, amend Exhibit 2 to include the Solid Waste Expenditure Plan monetary amounts. 7, add Exhibit 7, Solid Waste Expenditure Plan to Legislation 0144-20. 8, renumber or reletter succeeding paragraphs or sections according as necessary. This amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment which shall be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. Amendment 2, Navajo Technical College. 1, page 4, line 23 and 24, delete $61,486,555 as amended by Health, Education, Human Services Committee and insert $69,121,088. 2, page 5, line 25, delete $61,486,555 as amended by Health, Education, Human Services Committee and insert $69,121,088. 3, include as Exhibit 5-A into you request for funding and budget forms provided. The documents have been forwarded to the legislative advisor. 4, update Exhibit 2 to reflect the new amount set forth in this amendment. 5, renumber or reletter succeeding paragraphs or sections accordingly if necessary, and this amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment, but shall be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes, and the matter was referred to the Naabik'iyati Committee. Council is final authority. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Compotero. That, colleagues,
Motion, Vice Chair.
legislation 0144-20. Motion of Vice Chair Smith. Is there a second?
Hello.
Honorable Halona. That, colleagues. Any comments, questions? Once,
Chair,
twice.
Speaker, Vice Chair has a.
Hey, with that, Madam Chair, Crotty, 20 minutes on the board. Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Speaker. I have been having some technical difficulties. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good morning or good evening, colleagues. Today I bring before the Naabik'iyati Committee legislation 0144-20. This legislation is, I just have my notes right here. So this legislation is an expenditure for Navajo Nation CARES Fund expenditure plans for water projects, power line projects, and broadband telecommunication. Through committee, they also added solar units and solid waste. So if you go down to the legislation, colleagues, on our digital copy, page 3, you'll see starting page 2 of 10 on line 25 that the U.S. Congress on March 27th, over 100 days ago, enacted the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, also known as CARES, which is attached as Exhibit 1A. On this legislation, the CARES Act provides coronavirus relief funds shall be used only to cover areas that are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19. We were going to have a report from the controller. She is on standby, and she could give a more thorough review of the eligibility requirements and the U.S. Treasury guidelines, as that is going to guide all of our discussions today regarding any of these expenditure plans. The second part is that none of these expenditures are not accounted for in the tribal budget most recently approved as of March 27th. And these expenditures have to be incurred between March 1st, 2020 through December 30th, 2020. And so as we go through, you'll see that there's attachments to the U.S. Treasury, which I recommend for all my colleagues to read, including your legislative district assistants, so that they are firm on what are some of the protocols and what are some of the eligible projects. And so I want to go and move straight down to the exhibit. So Exhibit 3 is establishing the Navajo Nation CARES Fund in Navajo Nation Council Resolution CMY-44-20 as line item vetoed by the Navajo Nation President on May 30th, 2020. The purpose of this water project expenditure plan is to allow for the use and the expenditure, and that has changed, but it's for regional water projects on the Navajo Nation for the first year. Subject to the extension of the deadline of the CARES Act, additional projects shall be prioritized for expenditure from remaining. The expenditures set forth in the expenditure plan are necessary to ensure that Navajo communities receive basic water infrastructure for sanitation purposes. This will ensure that the Navajo people are adequately protected from exposure to the further spread of infectious diseases. The water project list includes, but is not limited to, water wells, cistern systems, support to water haulers, livestock windmills, earthen dam rehabilitation, irrigation upgrades, and infrastructure upgrades. This expenditure plan will be overseen by the Department of Water Resources. They will monitor and administer the funds. The Oversight Committee will be the Resource and Development Committee, and the Budget and Finance Committee shall share oversight, as RDC has oversight over the Division of Natural Resources, and BNF has oversight over externally restricted funding. There are new amendments added by the committees that have been that has been sent to the delegates from the Department of Water Resources. There was also an amendment added for NT-way water waste projects that are attached as amendments. The fourth exhibit creates the power line project expenditure plan. And this, again, is established using the CARES Fund, CMY 44-20. And the purpose of this power line project expenditure plan is to allow for the use and expenditure for regional power line projects on the Navajo Nation. Subject to the extension of the deadline of the CARES Act, additional projects totaling or additional projects shall be prioritized for expenditure from remaining funds. The expenditures set forth in the expenditure plan are necessary to ensure that Navajo communities receive basic utilities for water, heating, medical, and refrigeration purposes. This will ensure that the Navajo people are adequately protected. Power line projects include, but are not limited to, service line extension agreements, right-of-way, service drop lines, house wiring, meter looping, trunk lines, and transmission upgrades. The Division of Community Development will be in charge of monitoring and administrating these funds, and the RDC for our public, the Resource and Development Committee and the Budget and Finance Committee shall serve as the oversight. There was amendments to this legislation that also included a proposal for just over $35 million for solar units. And the language, as Mr. Patero read, that in terms of equity, that 40 units will go to every district on the nation, as we've all been impacted by COVID, and the remaining 40 will be prioritized for veterans who are in need of solar units. And that proposal is part of the amendment and part of your packet, colleagues. And so moving on to Exhibit 5 is the Broadband Expenditure Plan in accordance with CMY 44-20, as all of these expenditure plans are rooted and the foundation for the Navajo CARES Fund is in CMY-44-20. And so the purpose of the broadband expenditure plan is to allow for the use for regional broadband projects on the Navajo Nation subject to the CARES Act. Additional projects shall be prioritized for expenditure from the remaining funds. The expenditures set forth are necessary to ensure that Navajo communities receive wireless connectivity to support public safety, healthcare, and education. Broadband project list includes but is not limited to education broadcasting service, temporary license, tribal broadband planning, and broadband funding opportunities. This has been identified to be administered and monitored from the Navajo Nation Department of Information Technology. And the oversight will be the Health, Education, Human Service Committee and the Budget and Finance Committee. So other attachments are the committee reports that Mr. Patero read into the record. Exhibit 5 was updated with an amendment from NQA Broadband. And at RDC, I want to thank Delegate Freeland for adding the legislation for Navajo Technical University so that they too can expand their distant learning. What I want to do, Speaker, that is really the crux of this legislation brought before the committee. But if the controller is on the line, I would like her to well, before we defer to the controller, I apologize. If Dana's on the line, if Dana can add anything that I may have not provided in this presentation and any other areas that she feels that the committee should know about, which includes this U.S. Treasury latest extension of 90 days. And so Ms. Barbroff is on the line, Speaker.
Good afternoon. This is Dana. I think, of course, that Delegate Crotty did an excellent job. She pretty much covered everything. The one thing that I would point out is that there is a provision in the legislation wherein that if the controller, the Department of Justice, and OMB all concur that the proposed expenditure or an expenditure included in one of the plans does not satisfy the CARES fund criteria, the federal criteria, that the funding for that amount will revert out of the expenditure plan back into the CARES fund and be available for future CARES fund expenditures. The recent change in the Treasury guidance is that when we first started out this process with the CARES funding, the Treasury guidance was that services had to be received, goods had to be received, and payment made by December 30th. What has changed in the guidance is now, while the goods or services still have to be received by December 30th, there is an additional 90 days for payment. So that does give the Navajo Nation some additional time. So I think that the controllers will be talking to you when she has an opportunity to report. She will be talking to a lot about the audit process, the reporting process. But as Delegate Crotty emphasized, the major things, every expenditure, every project in your expenditure plan, if you are presuming it will be funded in December in 2020, it has to meet the criteria that are that down on page 3, starting in paragraph E. Those expenditures have to be related to mitigating or preventing COVID-19. They can't have been in the tribal budget, that were in the tribal comprehensive budget or the budget approved by March 27th. And the project, the services, the goods, has to be completed by December 30th, 2020. So at the moment, I don't have anything else to add, but I'll certainly be here with you throughout the process. Thank you. Oh, Speaker, could I add one more thing?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I have received many requests for amendments. I've gotten out quite a few today. I'm still working on them. You will get the more out hopefully later this evening. If this carries over till tomorrow, you will definitely have them by tomorrow. The one thing that I am starting to identify is that I am getting a lot of amendment requests that probably don't qualify for CARES funding. I'm also not getting a lot of information attached to the amendments. So the more you can get me, the sooner you can get them to me, the better. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you, Speaker. I did want to see if Controller was on the line, if she wanted to add to the presentation. We did send out, I think, in terms of the calls that we've had within the last week, I want to make sure that all of the delegates receive the latest information from the U.S. Treasury, and also some of the challenges in terms of the audit risk, and then what are some opportunities to free up Navajo Nation dollars, which are not restricted and wouldn't have to be within a certain timeline. Speaker, if I could, if you may ask if she's on the line and allow her to speak.
Controller, are you here on the line?
Good evening, Speaker. This is Controller on the line.
All right, I think there was a request from Honorable Madam Chair Amber Crotty.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Ado, yeah, kodo shaho agi, Speaker, and then Ado, shadeja, Delegate Crotty, Ado Asmakui, Naabik'iyati Committee, Ado Daisenosagi. I can add to the presentation. I know I apologize. I've been and I was juggling phone calls with the OPVP as well. So I can quickly go through the highlights, especially pertaining to this legislation. And I know we sent out a presentation. It's a PowerPoint that kind of had the latest on the CARES Act funds. And so, as Chief Legislative Counsel stated earlier, and I think the more we talk about this, the more everybody's going to get to know some of the or the main three criteria. You see from the has Anya on the federal side, the necessary expenditures incurred due to public health emergency with respect to COVID-19. That's the first one. Were not accounted for in the budget as of March 27th. The last one, were not incurred during the period from March 1st to December 30th. So, I see the in terms of infrastructure, the first one, necessary expenditure, there is no doubt that having to do these infrastructure projects that would help with the public health emergency and to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 and so forth. We can meet that criteria. Number two, for most of these projects, whether they were already budgeted for, appropriated, planned, and so forth from the Sihasin projects, 5-year plan from the PTF permanent fund. The interpretation of that, because we're dealing with Treasury, they'll interpret that broadly. So, the third one, whether these projects can be done by December 30th, because right now, in the middle of a pandemic, what are the likelihood that we're able to get these projects done? As far as meeting that criteria. So I've had meetings with various offices the past 2 weeks explaining some of these. The reason why this is important is based on the from the federal side, federal funds. So in using some of these federal funds, there's always rules that we have to follow, federal laws and so forth. So, some of these projects, in the middle of a pandemic, supplies there's backups in getting supplies and materials and so forth. Within those parameters, whether some of these projects can get done, we really had to take a hard look at that. Budget Treasury I see if it's already budgeted and planned for I think if you have my PowerPoint presentation on page 5, it spells that out. So in terms of infrastructure, audit report in daily. So audit based on chose indiki chose indiki based on bena jo non his audit report, though single audit audit findings. So the Navajo Nation right now in the last audit report, we had 7 audit findings. At one point there was 22, 11, so auto 10, the last audit report, 7 audit findings. So hajo that chila e bin yaki e ya hayseed. So e digi e bahas teaching so the based on his kuliagi the 714 million e so ayen hinesh indole audit findings that konana zago e ya ICRD hajo non hitnel indole so e digi e bini nache so the cho inigi e ya I abahas teaching so auto in future years naso ya based on the energy it impacts it auto high risk station we're high risk because of our single audit findings auto we're on a reimbursement basis so which is ya auto the other thing is based on the ingo if they gave us this money and we don't spend it in the next few years auto treasons in the not needle the federal government a coho ebony ya hajo tree don't eat hajo don't need to kishin de ya ajo the need in the list ya hajo ben situation there are some other concepts incurred so goods or services have to be performed by December 30th. Auto grant the liquidation period adjusting period so each one auto 90 days a treasury auto budget so need the bahashne treasury budget they're going to interpret it broadly. They're not going to say it's an annual comprehensive budget because with our process we do have a capital budget process but so so our operating budget doesn't include a capital budgeting process so if we already have budgeted through the CSN process or the 5-year plan, audit budget so based on because it's federal financial assistance single audit so some of the things that we need to be aware of, if it goes out to a enterprise or chapters, nonprofits and third parties, if it's more than 750,000, they have to be responsible for their single audit as well. Single audit whether it's our tribal enterprise chapters nonprofits and other third parties they're called subrecipients so not only are they subject to the Single Audit Act but they're also subject to our monitoring. So jo aje beso chios ini bitin kwiliagi tojo I lago e anhinha nasla kwi the Navajo Nation e shahot there in my PowerPoint on page 7 it gives you some examples the beso tree don't inchigi medical expenses, public health expenses, payroll, and benefits expenses for those employees that are substantially dedicated to mitigating and responding to COVID pandemic. Expenses of actions to facilitate compliance with COVID-19 public health measures. Economic support in connection with COVID-19 pandemic. There are other necessary expenses that satisfy the 3 requirements that I mentioned earlier. Ediki ant ende e ba be hot di de so chido intiki. Ado ba e ya I son esto esto dagi. So for example, payroll and benefits for those employees whose work duties are not substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to COVID. So, certain infrastructure. So, okay. Okay. Should I keep going, or am I?
Time. I can, since we're at Naabik'iyati committee members, I can give them another 10 minutes if you want them another 10 minutes. It has to be on a consensus though. If anybody does not want to give them 10 minutes and go straight to the floor, went once, went twice, went 3 times, go ahead and continue for another 10 minutes.
Okay. A few regarding the legislation and the infrastructure projects. On page 19, if it doesn't meet the 3 requirements, then it would not be allowable. I believe if it does meet those 3 requirements, then it meets the 3 requirements. The other thing is from March 1st, expenditures for example, payroll. We've been using general funds, so 638 funds. So one of the things to keep in mind is those are expenses that are allowable under the CARES fund. So one of the things I hope that we can do is reimburse ourselves. So those expenditures that we've paid out, they are allowable. If we reimburse those things, then we essentially free up our general funds and our 638 funds. And I hope we're able to do that. Currently, my office is looking into getting all of those expenditures together, that the ones that we've already incurred, and then also the ones that we estimate will incur in the next few months for this fiscal year. And also we can do that for the first quarter of fiscal year 2021. So what in effect you're doing is you're using the CARES Act money on expenditures that are allowable, that's freeing up your general funds and your 638 funds. So they're less restricted or unrestricted as opposed to these restricted funds. Then you can do other things. For example, you can redeploy those unrestricted dollars or less restricted dollars for your projects. So I just want to put that out there as well. The same thing with the other day we were trying to work with, and I know members of the RDC heard this presentation. We were looking into a small business grant. It's the same concept. And so those are vendors and small business owners that are affected by COVID-19. We can put those assistance programs together and all in compliance with Treasury guidelines and the CARES legislation. So if we already were going to use some of those funds using Navajo Nation dollars, we can instead use CARES money. So if we were already going to use unrestricted dollars, then we can free those up to use for projects and so forth. So so some of the other, just wanted to emphasize on page 14, on my PowerPoint presentation, we have some of these categorized and then also what we call a risk assessment. So in terms of audit, auditors, and I just want to say we will get single audit, which is our annual audit. The other thing I just want to mention is Treasury, the IC Haiti, the based on so yes, Congo, it's the first reporting period. And so the Treasury did send out a reporting information, and they have certain categories. And so some of those categories have to do with payroll, auto, budgeted personnel and services diverted to a substantial different use, improvements to telework capabilities for public employees, medical expense, public health expense, distance learning, economic support, and then they have a catch-all. They also have expenses associated with issuance of tax anticipation notes. Those are all the categories that they're interested in the reporting. So Yiscongo Eya, the first report is due. So we will have no expenditures on our report. So in terms of infrastructure, if we have infrastructure in one category, then that may raise some red flags. But if we're meeting all the other requirements, then we have a good argument on using the CARES money for those projects. The other thing I would just note on the reporting side, in September, there will be another deadline. They're putting together a portal. They will ask for more detailed information. So at some point, there's nothing prohibiting Treasury from coming in, even after the September reporting, and essentially asking us for documentation and performing audits and making inquiries. So, report about Nathalie. Back to the PowerPoint presentation on page 14. For the next few pages, it talks about the different things we can do with the CARES Act funds, anywhere from a general assistance program to infrastructure to a payroll support, including special duty pay, auto public health initiatives, small business grants, sub-recipient funding, for example, to chapters, uniform command group, food assistance program, telemedicine and distance learning. And then also there's a column that has risk in terms of audit, what raises audit flags. Some of them have low risk because Treasury says you can do this. There's a little bit, there's not a lot of guidance on the specific things. So you may run a higher risk of getting those things audited. So some of them, so we have color coded for green, red, and yellow. And then it gives you some insights on how to set some of those projects up. So for example, some of your assistance program, it would require like an eligibility criteria or a means test, based on something like income, those types of things. So some of those programs can be set up. And some of the things our office has done was outsource some consultation and expertise to help. Our outside consultant has the capability to help, and they've done some of these programs with other tribes, other state and local government. And so, for example, just today, I spent my day talking about student assistance, whether it's college students, K through 12, or Head Start. edigi baya delti in the aro dana a small business baya delti. So those are some of the ways to utilize these funds. And the last few pages of the PowerPoint explains some of the guidance and documentation examples and so forth. So I believe I covered the PowerPoint as fast as I can.
Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. And so I want to respect the time, just a time check. I know it's 8:16, Speaker. And so I just want to see what is the wishes of my colleagues. There's a few options. We can go to the questions right now, or we can digest the presentation and the amendments and come back tomorrow and have a full day to go over the amendments that were added and the controller's report. So I think if I just know it's 8:17. We have a storm on this side of the mountain, and so I just want to see what are the wishes of my colleagues. But those are my suggestions, Speaker. Thank you.
Speaker, this is Vice Chair Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your presentation. And moving forward, we do have a motion and second. Honorable Vice Chair Smith and Honorable Halona. I got Vice Chair Smith. I heard your voice.
Thank you, Speaker. 24th Council, Naabik'iyati Committee, and those that are listening to us this evening. And thank you for the presentation on the CARES Act and what's taking place on that. Office of Controller, it was something to hear and to understand. I have a motion to do an amendment. And I would like to have, I don't have access to the liberty of Senate at all, but I've got it written. And it's, excuse me. I don't know if Legislative Council can send it out to the council. It was sent to me earlier on Amendment 144-20 to include a water project in my area. I'm hoping that that can be taken place, Speaker. In that amendment, it's page 4, line 6, increase the amount set forth by $5,400,000. And number 2, increase the cumulative amount set forth in Exhibit 3, page 1, section I, by $5,400,000. 3, add the Wide Ruins South PH2 cisterns SDS narrative document attached to Exhibit 3. 4, renumber or reletter succeeding paragraphs or sections accordingly if necessary, and the amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendments, which shall be conform to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Service, with the notice of the sponsors of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. That's my amendment, Shananta. And I'm hoping they did send it out to our delegates on behalf of my motion to amend the 0144-20. Thank you, Speaker. Are we offline?
Oh, we could hear you, Vice Chair, and I received the amendment. Thank you.
Oh, Vice Chair Smith, hold on. We're just trying to get everything over here. She can put this on. No, it's died. I don't know what that. Hold on, Vice Chair Smith. I'm still trying to. The one that was sent out at 8:21? There's two of them. So, 5:40. My first question is, where's the legislature? Do you see it? Where's it going in at? Page 4 and 6, amending that same amount again. Amending that amount, to add that to that amount, or to 100, to the 100. Right here. Honorable. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, great. Honorable Vice Chair Smith, before I recognize your amendment, there's a couple of things that when the legislation was put together, it was put together on two different variables. Those two different variables are what can be collectively, the first variable is what can collectively be done in the first year. And then the second variable is if Navajo Nation Congress, or actually the United States Congress gives an extension to the CARES dollars, then there's another variable underneath a couple of the different areas, and most of them are underwater power line. It's a couple under broadband, and then there's new things like waste, solid waste, and the solar portion of it. My question to you now is this: does the legislation or this amendment, is this all 5.4 million going to be expended within the first year?
Speaker, thank you for that question. This project is ended with the SDS, and I've been told numerous times Mr. Smith, if you get the money, we can do it. I've been trying it for the past 23rd Council. Now I'm here with the CARES money. And that question, they said, as long as we get the money, we can do it. But time frame, that's a good question. That's why I'm putting this in, to ensure that Wide Rooms project is not put aside. People have been waiting. There's folks out there that don't have no water. I went by a windmill in that area, turned on the windmill. It was trickling out. That's how sad that is. And the wind was pushing that windmill, but there was just a little bit of water in there. So I'm not sure exactly when this project's going to be completed, but they said as long as we get the money, we can start doing this project. That's why I put this amendment in there. I talked to David McDonald. He gave me a quote. It's in the listing here as I had sent out for the amendment. And it lists the map, lists the homes, and the $8 million that was also included in there is if they go outside contracting, not with IHS. And that would be a 50% increase. And that's what he gave me, because I told him, I said, well, can't we just hire someone outside? Because I can give you that price too.
Honorable, sorry, Vice Chair Smith, I don't want to take too much time. We just need to know if it's can be complete in the first year. I don't know if you can contact Mr. McDonald and see if that can be done. And the reason why is because the legislation where you're amending right now, the Speaker's office has gone over working with Office of Legislative Services, and we had to do a lot of corrections to last week. The Health, Education, and Human Services Committee did some amendments, but they were done in the wrong area. So we're still trying to focus in on correcting those. And I want to start doing them right from here, this point going forward. And there's a reason why, is because we have to put the legislation together that says that if we put $5.4 million down in there and we don't get to that $5.4 million, there could be possible audit findings too as well, not meeting those requirements by the Department of Treasury. So that's my question to you, Vice Chair Smith. I don't know if you want me to go. I don't know if you want me to go over that, what we put together, Madam Chair, Amber Crotty from the Speaker's office that we sent out, that chart, but it would help explain too as well what I'm talking about. Oh, Mr. McDonald's on the line.
Okay, well, get him on the line. Let's see what he says.
Oh, he's on.
He's going to say that. I'm sure he's going to say that all the projects that are on there are not going to be completed in 1 year. So I'd like to hear that.
Mr. McDonald, are you on the line? Thanks, he's on. Miss So or Miss Rosalind So, are you on the line? They said they were there.
Yeah, this is Rosalind. I am on the line.
Hi, Rosalind. Good to hear your voice this evening. We just had a question. We're trying to make sure we're doing these amendments right, and Honorable Vice Chair Smith has an amendment for an SDS project, and we just wanted to make sure that we were in compliant with our own legislation and seeing if this $5.4 million project that he's referring to in the Wide Ruins area, South PH11, or Phase 2, I guess that's what you'd say. is going to be completed within this fiscal year.
Thank you, Speaker, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I can't speak to that, but I will. I'm trying to get a hold of Dave right now.
Okay. Right. Thank you. It's up to Vice Chair Smith. Is it okay if I come back to you on your amendment and then we know?
Speaker, with due respect, please mute your phones, guys. Appreciate it. I don't know how long we're going to get Mr. McDonald on the line, but it'll take some time. And I'm not sure if they're just going to be scrutinizing my project. I'm sure we should be asking if all those projects that are listed in there are going to be completed in 1 year. Let's not exclude this project. I know other projects may not even be done within a year. Speaker.
That's why what I could do is allude to a document that our office created, but I leave that up to Madam Chair Crotty. This is her legislation.
Speaker, this is Delegate Crotty. I think if you have confidence in that document, if your staff can explain it, I tracked the legislation and projects a different way, so I'm not quite clear on that document. But if your staff wants to present it, I think what I'm hearing from Chairman Smith is have all of the projects that've been added to the water listing, have they been vetted, and do they meet the criteria because that's what you're asking him. That's what I'm hearing from Vice Chair Smith. So if you feel the document your staff created can answer that question, then I think it's appropriate for us to hear it. Thank you.
Well, to answer your question, Madam Chair Crotty, this document's not going to be accurate after what the controller had presented. The controller just now presented and stated that there might be some problems with projects that were already funded under the CHSN fund. And those projects that are already funded under the CHSN legislation and were, if you remember, colleagues, the president indicated that that his direction was to utilize the CARES dollars and replace those with the CSN dollars so that we could save the CSN fund on numerous different projects, whether that be water or power line. Now, in doing that, the controller had just now indicated that it could be a potential audit finding. So our office now, that's one opinion that we hear from the controller. We still haven't heard anything from the Navajo Nation Department of Justice on that. I don't know if Office of Legislative Counsel, Ms. Barbroff, if you've heard anything back, but from what I'm hearing right now is that the Navajo Nation cannot utilize pay for projects that have already been approved under the CSN legislation and swap them out with CARES dollars. So in that indication, I'm going to have to go back and work together with Jason, John, Rex, Mr. McDonald, probably all weekend in order for us to clearly identify the new listings. Because in the document that was given to us under the water projects and even some of the power line dollars, there's been approved funding in there that was already completed and already adopted by this council, signed into law by the president, and that was under the CSN fund. So we're gonna have to switch that out, but again, that is according to what we just now heard from the controller's office. We didn't get anything else from Department of Justice as of yet. So maybe Office Legislative Council, I don't know if you want to chime in on this portion.
Actually, Speaker, as sponsor of this legislation, I'd ask to answer that question should be Jason John. He's on the line. So I understand and I hear that maybe your staff can help you get a little bit updated or whatever information that we need you to know, but Jason John can't answer the question for Vice Chair Smith.
Okay, if Jason's on the line, yeah. Mr. John, are you on the line?
Yes, Speaker, I'm on the line.
Okay, Mr. John, just the question that we had is for the Honorable Vice Chair Smith's Cicerone project down there at White Ruins, the 5.4 million, is that something that can be spent within the first fiscal year by December 30th?
Speaker and other delegates, the short answer is no. Dave McDonald and other meetings have stated that all those projects that were listed on their SDS listing is something that most of them cannot be completed this year, especially waterline projects. The only potential for completion was some cistern projects, and they had identified those early on. And the way we presented the information from Water Resources, and it's not clear in the legislation because of the black and white printout. It had time frames for pre-construction activity and then time frames for construction activity through completion. And a majority, the way it was crafted to have expenditures this year was that some of those waterline projects were near shovel ready, and that those would be ready for construction this year. And the way water lines are typically paid for is when they're construction ready, the monies are paid up front to NECA. So that's what was presented in the plans that we put forward, but that anticipated that the construction would be allowed to be completed next year or the year afterwards. But they would have been construction ready, but they can't be completed this year. And that is something I think the controller is making more clear, that we run the risk of not qualifying, meeting the requirements for the CARES Act if the project is not completed and the delivery of service is not done this year, that there's a risk of it not qualifying for the CARES Act. So that it's not being recommended that funds be spent for projects that cannot be completed, and that's the majority of the water lines that were on the listing. The listing of almost 120 million in projects, it did include projects that we thought we could pay out this year, that construction could start this year, but
completion wouldn't occur until next year. So we have been going through the listing with NTUA and others, and that has resulted in a much smaller list. The questionable expenses are still related to the purchase of material and the purchase of equipment. Those items might not be delivered until December or early January, and because they're not going to be used during the time period between now and December, there's a chance that those purchases may not qualify for the CARES Act either because they're not being utilized. But to me, it's still a bit of a gray area if we could still buy it, but right now seems to be at risk. Speaker, thank you.
My question back to you then is this, John, I know I'm trying to help Vice Chair Smith here and put something on. I don't know if you or Mr. McDonald can possibly look at the Wide Ruins South Phase 2 projects and see if there's anything in there that could possibly be expended on this year so that we can at least use the CARES dollars for at least a portion of that. And that might not be 5.4 million. That might just be the design and A&E work for it, but at least we got that out of the way. So I don't know if there's something that we could show to include within this fiscal year. And I guess that's for all projects too as well. And I know Vice Chair Smith's been trying to work on this project for years, a couple of years. And I just want to know if there's any way we can possibly utilize some of these CARES dollars to help start the process. It might not construct it, but it might take care of like the PRE, getting it ready for completion, where eventually we could set it up to possibly next year if we get cut off in the funding that there's no more CARES funding after December 30th. We can possibly try to put this in for an EPA or some other kind of grant funding so that at least we got a preliminary engineering report out of the way from this.
Yes, Speaker. I don't know if a report, a preliminary engineering report, or doing some surveys, biological clearances, archaeological clearances during this year. I mean, the work could be done, money could be expended on those. I just don't know if it would qualify for the CARES Act. That's something Controller and OEC would have to weigh in on if the deliverable was a report or a survey.
Just to let you know, this is David McDonald. I did get on the phone, so I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McDonald. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good.
If you heard the discussion, we're just trying to see, trying to help Vice Chair Smith out here and collectively, he's been trying to work and get this Wide Ruins Southern Phase 2 project completed. And we're looking at deadlines here. And one of the overall goals is trying to see if there's any funding that can help assist utilizing the CARES dollars within this physical year to try to knock down some of these walls and getting some of these reports completed or getting anything towards completion, some A&E work, whatever is possible in the first year to help assist the Vice Chair Smith's project. So that's what we're just looking to see what can possibly be spent in the first year for this specific project. And I don't know if you have that broken down. I don't know if you considered that, Mr. McDonald.
I came into the conversation about 2 minutes ago when Jason was talking about the different, some of the different plans. But yeah, I'm familiar with the Wide Ruins Phase 2 project somewhat. I'm not the engineer on it, obviously, but we've been talking about this project for a while with Delegate Smith, and it's called Wide Ruins for a good reason, probably, is that there are a lot of archaeological sites out there, and I think one of the biggest we had estimated for planning. We typically get planning money in advance to do archaeological surveys and biological clearances and the right-of-way surveying that's done by NECA for us. And in this project, we estimated the cost being pretty high. I think we estimated $120,000 probably that we needed for planning, because the ARC report might end up costing about $100,000. We don't know for sure. Maybe at least 80, because it is a lot of. It's going to be a pretty thick report, I would imagine, by the time we're done. And I think that's about what it costs to do Phase 1. So that process for getting ARC survey started really requires us to go out and stake the waterline route so that the archaeologist knows about where it's going to go. And that involves our staff time to get out there. And I forget how many miles of waterline out that this project involves, but it's probably at least 10, if not more, probably 15 miles of waterline. So it's a fair amount of legwork that has to go in to even get the ARC survey ready for the archaeologist. If we're talking about doing that in the next 5 months, I would say that's probably not realistic to get the ARC report completed in 5 months if we're talking the end of this year. If you're saying 12 months from now, I would say that could be realistic. We could have an archaeologist survey and give us a report if we had 12 months to do that. It typically takes, at least when the archaeologist actually gets on site and does the survey, to get the report can take 3 months before we actually get a written report. So I don't know if you want all that detail or not, but that would probably be something we could accomplish in 1 year. Construction-wise, that project is going to take a number of years to complete. It's unrealistic to think that the project is going to be built within 3 years, in my opinion, by IHS. If you had a big company from somewhere else that just had a lot of resources and staff and could just throw 10 engineers on this, maybe they could get it done in a year. But for IHS, it's going to take a lot longer, unfortunately. That's all do you have any questions?
No, again, it just goes back to my first question, Mr. McDonald. The first question is just, is there an amount that you can see that possibly could be utilized towards this project within this first year, just in case if that can help start this project? And that we look at you as the experts on that.
I'm not sure what exactly you mean by that, because I've heard different dates and different deadlines. I've heard December 31st of 2020.
December 30th.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought there was 31 years or 31 days in December. But anyway, whatever. If it's December 30th of this year, that's 5 months. That's not enough time to get it done. Even the ARC survey. We could start getting some of the preliminary work for the ARC survey done in 5 months, but that's not gonna. That's just our IHS staff time to get out there and walk the route and stake the line and look for anything obvious washes that we're going to try to avoid or rock outcropping. So there's a fair amount of work that still needs to happen, and we're at the very sort of. We've done some preliminary for the SDS. We do some preliminary layouts. We have an idea. Well, we know where the homes are, and we know where the existing water lines are, and we've laid out a route for that water line. And there's going to be a tank. There's going to be a booster station because it's higher in elevation. It has to pump up to a water tank, and I don't think we have any of the real groundwork established yet on exactly where all those things are going to go yet. I would have to check with our staff to see just how much they are comfortable with where that route is really going to go, and if they've done any preliminary staking for that yet. So I don't know. To answer your question, if it's by the end of this calendar year, it's really, there's not much we can spend. The ARC report is, and the archaeologist and getting an ARC report is probably what's going to cost the most out there. It's going to probably run in the range of around $80,000 to $100,000 for that ARC survey.
Okay,
Speaker.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Vice Chair Smith.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaking of the ARC clearance and all the right-of-ways, Wide Ruins had $125,000 that was earmarked, and that was supposed to go to IHS. However, DOJ told the chapter that they cannot do that because they're not certified. And I'm glad Jason's on the line. That money was supposed to go from the chapter with the MOU or MOA to Jason, and then that money would be given to IHS so they could do that preliminary work that we're talking about. Because I was always told, have you done that? Have you got any funds? Has the chapter initiated anything? Now, so I brought that back to the chapter. I said, look, the reason why we're not getting anywhere is because we're not doing anything on our part. So the chapter says, okay, we got some money. Let's get that going. And that money is in that listing that Dave provided for us here about a week ago when we were talking about it, and it still says zero. So, Speaker, the chapter has initiated $125,000. We could have had already gotten that taken care of, and we could have said, okay, let's fund just the water line. I remember sitting there talking with Mr. McDonald. I said, what can we do? Can we just fund the water line? Because this is way too expensive for us. He goes, yes, let's just fund the water line, and then we'll find funding on the United States side. That'll be leverage on your part, Mr. Smith. And I said, okay, well, let's work that way. Let's get the $125,000 done first. Let's get it going, and then I'll find the money for the water line project, and then you can help me out with the rest of that so that the folks out there can have water. So that's where we're at, Speaker. And I'm hoping that Jason can answer where that MOU or MOA is, because Wide Ruins chapter is now saying, just give it to them. Just let them have do the whole thing. Let us recoup the $125,000 so we can do the water line projects. I mean, the bathroom additions. Folks need bathroom additions, but we don't want to start it right now until we know it's going to go into construction phase. The other question I want to ask Mr. McDonald too, all these projects that are on 144-20 that are listed in the water projects, are they going to be completed within a year with 5 months? Is that going to be happening? Because now I'm trying to add this on. They're saying, wait a minute. Let's really scrutinize this one first before we add that on. I'd like to have that answer. How many of those are actually ready to be completed, to be done? Because I'm sure other delegates are waiting in line to get water. That's the main purpose of this CARES Act money. And Speaker, the other one is I requested Office of Legislative Services or Council to draft the legislation for asking the government for an extension, because we are no way like the state, the county, or the federal government. We are a whole different group of laws, regulations, by golly, and we cannot move as quick as they can. And like Mr. McDonald said, if we can get a corporation come in, they can hire engineers and they can give the job. Of course, the rate is going to go up. We can pay them and they can get this done within a year time frame. Cool, that is great. But we don't have that capacity. We are not like the state, county, so we need to address that to the United States Treasury, saying, look, you're comparing apples to oranges. So that's what I am really seeing as we talk. Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable Smith, I'm not. I just wanted to let you know first. I'm sorry that I'm bringing this up right now, and I'm sorry that I'm trying to explain what can and cannot be done. And I'm sorry that if you feel like I'm scrutinizing this one, but I wasn't there when the legislation went from $64 million in water projects the first year. And then next thing you know, it went to $180 million. In amendments that were read into the record, we need to go back and fix those. And I do believe we did a good job of breaking that down, working together with the Office of Legislative Services. But I really, really want to get a legislation that's passed, that's correct and accurate, that we know that, okay, these projects are not all going to get done. There's $356 million worth of water projects right now. In the amendment that was passed at HESI, there's only 117 million that's going to be relatively done within the first year. And as you heard from Mr. Jason John, Honorable Vice Chair Smith, the majority of that is going to be utilized for supplies or purchasing for advance for supplies. So I'll go back to Mr. Jason John. You can refer to his question, then Mr. McDonald too as well.
Speaker, this is Delegate Crotty. I wanted to clarify a statement. Yes, thank you, Speaker. So I was present when these amendments were added to the legislation, and I wanted to state for every committee who reviewed and voted on this legislation, this information that was provided was not discussed until last Saturday. And so I think Jason and N2A and everybody who added the amendments did it in good faith. And what we found out with working with the Office of the Controller is the determination for high risk audit findings, and then as U.S. Treasury submitted additional guidelines just last Wednesday. So July 8th, after the committees heard this legislation, there was additional guidelines. So I want to be clear that when these amendments were going before the committees, this was not so much of an issue as what we're now bringing to the table in terms of projects. And so I just wanted to make that statement clear. and there is a new list. And I just need to know if Jason concurred with that list that was submitted to legislative by Paul Sinchaco, the chief of staff. He submitted a list after the 3 branch meeting. So if we could ask Jason in terms of that list.
I'll turn it over to you, Mr. John.
Yes, Speaker, we have been working off this list that's in the CARES Act in terms of a lot of the water projects. And basically all of the costs in year 2021, 2022, 2023, 2020, all those costs are right now not seen as eligible for the CARES Act, as the CARES Act is right now with no extension. And then for the year 1 projects, if even we thought we could do the normal thing, and if it was going to be construction ready this year and not completed until next year or the year after, we thought we could pay for that this year. But now, knowing that the project needs to be completed by this December, now it's wiping out a majority of the water line projects because the construction won't be done until next year or the year after. So what we are basically left with is how many cisterns could be built this year. All those first projects that were listed, talking about transitions from Citizen to CARES Act, talking about other IHS waterline projects, all of that is basically off the table now. And as far as the cistern projects, now we're just looking at how many could physically be completed this year. And then there was a few projects in the regional plan that could be completed this year, such as the Tahajale in the distribution within the chapter, that replacement, because the bids are being received this month. And there's a good chance we could use the CARES Act money to put into the contract, because we'll select a contractor at the end of the month for that project. And then there was some other smaller projects, like some well drilling, where we've already, the project is already going forward in planning and design, and those things could be completed relatively shortly. And drilling a well could be done in several months, so that could be completed. Some distribution work on various projects, they could be completed this year. Those things were identified, and I think they were on a listing that Mr. Paulson Chaco, I think, provided in the 3 branch chiefs meeting. There's still work going on with that list as to what could be completed in terms of the cistern projects, and vetting more of the other items, including the purchase of pipe, the purchase of equipment. We could still move forward. We're trying to get bids for the purchase of the pipe and equipment. We could start that process now, and we could pull it from the process at any point before we actually buy it if we find out that it won't meet the requirements of the CARES Act. But I think time is running out, and the more we wait on trying to figure out if purchasing pipe is allowed or not for sure, every day counts at this point. So we might just start doing the pre-work of providing the bid documents to go out for publication. But in those bid documents, it always states that the nation reserves the right to withdraw it at any point before it's completed. But right now, we know that is a high risk. Trying to purchase pipe and equipment, we've been notified of that already by the Controller and Department of Justice. But they said they would try to continue looking at it to see to gather more information. And we have not met back with them yet. Well, I have not. Maybe somebody else has. That's all I have, Speaker.
Thank you. Mr. John.
Speaker,
Yeah.
this is Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith, go ahead.
Thank you, Speaker. I was hoping to hear an answer.
Speaker.
Repeat that?
Yes, Vice Chair Smith. Vice Chair Smith?
Yes, sir.
Who is your question? From
My question
Mr.
was,
John.
it was on that MOA between Wide Ruins to funnel that money from their account through Water Resources and to McDonald IHS. Where is that at? Wide Ruins keeps asking about it. I was hoping to get an answer on that because, like I said earlier, they had put $125,000 to get that right away. Like what McDonald said, that's the biggest cost. That was the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, with that, back to you, Mr. John.
Yes, we did send the chapter resolution language back to the chapter, I believe, in February, and then they were supposed to get that passed at the chapter level, requesting that, and then you were going to drop legislation to make it happen, but something happened where I haven't received the chapter resolution, and I don't think you've been able to drop that legislation. That's all I have.
Okay. That. Ms. Barbroff? Want to speak?
Speaker, what's the question to me right at the moment?
No.
Speaker, do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm over here trying to do two different things.
Okay, the question was, Dana, I requested a legislation to drop regarding the extension due to the fact that we're not like the county, the state, having the ability, having resources out there so that we could expedite this money before December 30th, and to plead with U.S. Treasury to consider our situation because of all the policies, laws, regulations, and things that we have to go through. And it's virtually impossible to get anything paid out before December 30th of this year are completed, and we need to redress the U.S. Treasury to be considerate of not only our situation, but other Indian nations through the United States may be also facing the same thing. And I would like to have that legislation go through the committees and go through Naabik'iyati to redress the United States government through our Congress to say, we need to extend this because we have $714 million and it wasn't our fault to receive this at the latter hour because of the Alaska Corporation was holding it up and U.S. Treasury was trying to make a decision. Now we got it. Now we're losing time. That's my question. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry, my phone is being weird. I can't hear everything, but yes, Delegate Vice Chair Smith, that is certainly a legislation that we are working on. We are attempting to incorporate OPVP's white paper that they sent out to the various agencies and delegates, the congressional members. So that legislation will be coming up. It's certainly being worked on here.
Thank you very much. Speaker.
Let me go back to real quick. We need a direction now, and that direction is Vice Chair Smith. What are you wanting to do right now?
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to have Mr. McDonald see what we can realistically put in the CARES Act. If we can just put the water line in, that would be reasonable. And also have Jason, John, and Wide Ruins and myself work together to get that $125,000 for the right-of-way to be executed. That's what I would like to see on this amendment, Speaker. Thank you.
Okay, so you're going to work together then with Mr. McDonald, and then possibly coming back with another amendment, maybe if not tomorrow, but possibly at council?
By all means, Speaker, because
okay,
folks need water out there. Thank you.
All right. That, colleagues, Honorable Otto So, and then Honorable Eugene So.
Thank you very much. We do get the fact that Honorable Smith's been working on trying to get this project funded for many years. And then hearing Mr. McDonald talk about where the project is really at, and from that time frame to now, it seems like it didn't really move forward because of there's probably no planning funding that was allocated to actually say that to get your clearances done, the fish and wildlife, and your right-of-way, and your survey, all these procurements required preliminary for the water line. In my mind, when Mr. Smith would bring up this water line, I assumed that all the right-of-way was completed. That was just my thought. But it really gives me I really see where the project is at, and you see David McDonald's analysis correct. I used to work in that program many years ago, that OEH program. And you have to have these certain provisions, certain things done before the project is funded. But in the meantime, realistically, I believe I brought up one area indicating to IHS at one time was that why can't we just go and start funding planning money for these water projects? That way, the preliminary for these water projects are done. That way, all the engineering aspect is completed, because that's all the engineer needs, because IHS has the engineers and they need the planning dollars to get these projects moving forward. So in sense, planning dollar for White Ruins, however many mile it is, it would cost about 80,000 or maybe 100,000 to actually just infuse planning dollars to take care of certain things. But in the meantime, I think the project is in a limbo, and if the engineer says that you can't realistically build it out until 3 years, what do you do? It's just like going to a doctor and the person has a lung issue and he needs a new lung. He or she needs a new lung. It just depends on when they get it. And right now, I guess the preliminary dollars need to be infused to get all the project packaged so that it's actually project ready. That's just my thought of this. I thought that when I heard Mr. Smith, he used to sit right by me across on the 23rd Council, and before we were rearranged. But that's just what I look at, and I guess Mr. McDonald or IHS, realistically, what could be funded, I believe that's doable. The other thing to do, my colleagues, is disapprove this and subject it to, if the funds are not approved, if the funds are not expended by November 30th, it reverts back, and maybe the other portion will come out for the giving up per cap to the Navajo people. What's left with the CARES Act. That's just what I'm looking at, and I guess you could do it for all the projects that we set money for. Let's set a deadline. If they're not done utilizing those dollars by the end of November 30th, then per cap could be taken care of in a month. Let's do that. So that's just my thought. This is my opinion. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, Honorable Eugene So on the main motion.
I thought there was an amendment to it.
Oh, there's no amendment on the main
Okay.
motion.
Okay, regards to the yesterday, I listened to the Congresses. They are trying to push an extension on it. I don't know what's going to happen to it, but to extend that this money that's going to go expire on December 30th. And I had an interview with the NBS yesterday morning. They came by asking me what I said, I guess 2-3 months ago. They told me that because of my interview with them, they got something that they wanted to know where the Navajo Nation is around the world to donate and start donating stuff. So they interviewed me again yesterday, me and Joe Shirley. And in there, what the thing that was asked was how the money that the 715 how it's going to be used. In there, I told them that it's federal money. It's got a lot of laws to it. It's when they give you money for a jacket to wear, you have to wear it in July and August. That's how the money, how is the regulation even relates to that fund. Somehow, sometimes it seems like you can't even get to it. But by the time you get to it, to use the money, almost half of it will be gone, or almost all of it will be gone. So it seems that that's how this fund is right now. We had to go through all these regulations, and then the time is running out right now. We just got a few more months. So I told the interviewer to tell President to lock up Navajo Nation the whole month and just use that 700 million to get food and PEP for first responders and just lock us up, and let's see if we can be a solution to trying to slow down the COVID-19. And that would be a good thing to use it just right off the bat right there. So that's what I told them. So I don't know if they told the president on that issue yet. So it seems like we had to get rid of that money, no matter how. But it has to be gotten rid of a long time ago. We just did what we wanted to do. But now we're almost at the tail end of it. We might just might lose it. That's what I'm thinking about. But we need to go start thinking about what we can get right now. Right now, what we can get out of it that without pushing all these other big projects in there and infrastructure, etc. That's what's holding us up. At the end, we already
coming back.
A lot of right-of-ways and a lot of engineering, all of these kind of stuff. We knew it's going to be asked for, but I don't know. We just kept going and talking about it all this time. We know that's what's going to hold up. We're not going to do it by December the 30th. If we would have just got something right away that we knew that's already there, instead of going into all these big projects for our people, we would have got rid of that money. That's just how I see it, because the money's like that. It's got a lot of regulation attached to it in order for you to use it and get rid of it. And that's just how I see it. But we need to start doing something right now from each chapters to find out what kind of projects that we can get easy. Not the one that needs engineering and all these other sort of stuff that it has to be right away. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of projects out there that need to be done right away. So that's just how I see it. And I think the Chinle chapter already proposed some projects to the president. So those are some of the things we had to start thinking about, because we can't think about building the whole Navajo Nation in a different way, where we had to build it until about 10 years, because that money is going to only be there until December 30th. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. So that, I don't have anybody else on the queue.
Speaker.
On main motion.
Speaker, this is Doug.
Gotta get you over here.
Honorable Delegate Yellow Hair, go ahead.
Yeah, this speaker, good evening. Kind of very late now, but since there's no choice, I'll talk about this. I have a little kind of nervous about this federal funds. There's one meaning that really bothers me, is that, which we all know, Councilman Schnapp-Ani, we're not accounted for any travel budget, most recently approved by March 27. Deal over on Naabik'iyati. Audit must be incurred from March 1st through December 30. The are very nervous about this. Should they quick? You quick, put a hot in the debate, it all the expense
Erebede tidole. Jason Johnny, Anike, Hotanshi Dalia, Lai, Apie Hatzido, Dido, Bigat and non Hitchahatzi, but not Shini. I discussed this with you in Black Mesa Mini Mill Waterline Project. This is not even in it at all. It's not even close. But when I talked to teleconference the last time, that I was told that your Mini Mill Waterline Project will be add-on based on the Dr. Yellowman. So Jason Johnny, I think it's an old list. Jason and needs to be updated because we're still planning to meet with NTUA and IHS at our meeting. Remember that yesterday, you have the Waterline Project on Lake Black Mesa. There's water needs to be eligible for expenditures of CARE Act. This CARE Act, Maniki, Chito, Itana for Forest Lake, and also a mini-mill phase 3 and 4 and 5 waterline project extension at city system, Cody of system waterline project, northwest of Pinion's extension waterline project. There's so many things in here. Trying to get at this. I get up in the CARE Act. I'm not even interested at all. There's 3 areas of project. A waterline project, electricity project, and broadband project. All of the bonus from the bonus all of the big if there's a big project involved, this money is not available for this $600 million, $714 million. Go big this project is not related to this March 1st, 2022, March through December 30. I couldn't doubt in it agent 20 year out but I still have to meet with NTUA and IHS so I can get on this list with the $714 million CARE Act fund. About this. I thought I just look at this project. Legislation 144-20 for nothing. Over on this case. This list is in here is an outdated list, Jason. Around the Shmayaja. It's outdated. It's no use to put it in here. We need to update information. Being John, what about this? You should Shmayaj and Procrati. Hajos Elian Ajani, Dosich in the Nahalan. But the Navajo Nation Justice Department must prepare federal budget extensions. Elia, Shint Epiga, Alcadalia, Eya, Arada Bonet Zada. Remember that November and December is going to be cold. We only have 3 months left. It over this Bawan of Sunshine Ani, 24 councilman. Ada later that's an ISIS song. Abba HT or the Black Mesa Waterline Project. Here now, this today answer Mr. Damon, Speaker. Adam a college 24 councilman controlled the door. Says there is some songy. I need to behind the federal guidelines. They're always Nihinas Nebelakana. Ayan, Chidaya Sons and Nakatayin. Those own synthesis, Bantus case of but the Chilean Nihiabus Dustin. Don't know who owned that way. Foreign country overtrade that later. Aid of Agatachi, Nika. They sent billions of dollars foreign country. Then they never get 1 penny back. The Otabahas, so Speaker, this really bothers me. So let's prepare for just a federal budget extensions. I just count on maybe we should make directive tonight to get this in. Let's be serious about this federal fund. Speaker, thank you. Yeah.
Down, Chairman Daniel. So
this is Elmer Beguer, Speaker.
Question. Yeah, I got you in the queue.
Speaker, put Freeland in the queue too, please. Thanks.
Okay. This is the lineup. I have Chairman Daniel So, Honorable Slater, Honorable Elmer Brigade, and now Honorable Freeland.
And then add Hino to that.
Honorable Chairman Nino. Honorable Chairman Daniel So.
Add Delegate James. Delegate Brigade too.
Chairman Daniel So.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can.
Okay, the system had me on mute. Ya te ngadasni dole. Ado kwaiki. CARES Act on Yeltiki. I do have a similar amendment that I wanted to propose. However, it's that particular documents and figures aren't complete. But I want to just say, could we have a timeout so that we can get our amendments ready and our dollar figures? I had a wanted to make an amendment to do a bulk watering point to Sand Springs community within White Horse Lake chapter. And in previous discussions, NTUA had deemed it feasible, but we hadn't heard back from IHS. The original estimate was 4.25, and it was reduced to 4.05 for 30 residences. And the change is the right-of-way would go along State Highway 509. And then from there, veer off into private ranch property. And the rancher has already verbally stated that he would allow the water line to go through his property to the Sand Springs community. And that's the reason that there's a reduction in the cost. So in that aspect, it's going to be, again, a multi-year because of the necessary clearances. And my thought is to now just establish a 50,000 gallon tank within the community where water hauling would take place, and the community members don't have to drive anywhere from 35 to 45 miles round trip to get their water. And in inclement weather, our Navajo people have to cross a wide arroyo. And inclement weather, when the water's flowing, then it's impossible for our people to get the necessary water. So that is, and that's why I'm saying, give us time to get our amendments ready. And if we could just call a timeout and come back in the morning and proceed with our amendments. But I also thought about a similar
second to that
amendment that is within the solar aspects 40 units within each council delegate district. The other aspect is I want to also afford our community residents, those that are within existing water systems that need water, that have not been afforded that connection. Perhaps also a similar equity aspect. Short line, water line extensions within existing systems, so that our folks that have basically are within short line water systems can then get water. So those are two amendments that I would really be pushing for in the coming days. And if need be, Mr. Speaker, if we don't get through all the amendments, could we then meet every day? Because it is a very complex issue that we're dealing with. We're finished with almost today, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That is the thoughts that I come away with right now as what we are dealing with, and what it focuses on is this 714 million. What it really tells us is, as the Navajo Nation government, we've really never focused on providing safe drinking water to our Navajo citizens. And it takes this pot of money to really realize that, yes, water is a necessary component for us to maintain our livelihood. Within the Navajo homelands. And it certainly, again, focuses on the fact that the other essential power line and broadband services are a necessary component of having a quality of life that other folks in the other areas of the United States, they have almost at their disposal. In areas away from the Navajo Nation, a person having property, all they have to do is file for and pay the fees to install their own septic systems. They can do their own backhoe work. An inspector comes by, checks everything out, and says, okay, put it together. When everything is completed, it comes back and gives another inspection. And then he gives permission to backfill. That can be done in one day. A similar request for a water line to a water nonprofit water association. Water line installation can happen in one day. And that's the part that we don't realize. And that aspect, it's we make it complicated. And I'm sorry that the councils the distinguished and honorable delegates in the years that have come to make these laws that make it so complicated that even a school person could do this work himself if there was that allowance. Right now we have families helping each other make extensions to their homes. Right now we see them at Lowe's or Home Depot buying 2x4s, 2x6s, the necessary boards. And they're not waiting for anybody. They're not waiting for the CARES Act. They're making room expansion so that they can basically afford their improve their living conditions, make room for the folks that are laid off in the cities that have come home, and they're making their own family effort to build extensions to their homes, to their hogans. So those are some things that I think we really have to realize, that we are part of the problem for having made these laws. And how do we best make it? We have to sit down and say, okay, this particular law needs to be waived. We're asking the federal government to provide waivers for NEPA. We're asking the federal government to put aside other aspects of federal law for us ourselves. Those constraints that some of our citizens, they can do the work, and we're looking outside. We have skilled craftsmen. We have equipment operators. They have backhoes sitting in their yards. They have front end loaders sitting in their yards. And we aren't saying, let's put them to work. Those are the aspects that we have to really focus on. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to basically motion for a recess and just to start laying out that this particular legislation is so massive that we look at it for the next, all the way till Sunday, every day, to incorporate these aspects of equity funding, the short line, water line extensions, the aspects of establishing water points and establishing water tanks at certain spots, remote spots where people can at least take their water tanks and fill up and take it within a short distance to their own homes. I cannot imagine to have my family members sit in line, arrive at 5 a.m. in the morning, and still be in line at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And then finally to get home after dark. That's what our people are enduring. And they do that for some families every day, for some families 3 times a week. And we have to, this is an opportunity to give them a better quality of life. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for letting me speak to the rest of the delegates as we go forward. I appreciate this time out of Jazz Twisazani. Bagin Hitcha Sigi Lato, Shahin Sindo, Quagisin Lato. Lato Shin out on that case. Late, Hajot at Ilmi. I see. Anna the Gion. Nabanazla, a quaggy, a bonnet in the relation, so yeah, this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So, hold on, I'm doing.
Second the motion, Speaker.
Hold on, colleagues.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, Chairman. So, there's it would just be a consensus at this point, colleagues. Everybody good to recess? And the reason why is because there's already a motion on the floor right now. I just need a consensus, and I can do it myself.
Okay.
If you're in opposition to keep continuing on, speak now. Otherwise, I'm recognizing the motion to recess. Motion by Chairman Daniel So, second by. Well, it's not. It's just going to be myself. Up to the chair to recess until tomorrow morning. Question of privilege, Honorable Slater.
Thank you, Speaker. What are your thoughts on proposing an agenda for Saturday through Sunday?
To tell you the truth, I have already delegated staff to post agendas on Saturday at 1 o'clock and Sunday at 1 o'clock. We already planned that for this weekend. Well, at least the staff has been notified that if we didn't finish tomorrow, we would be possibly going in on Saturday and Sunday. Okay, there's no consensus. Going once. It's going twice. Or 3 times. We'll recess. And we're still on the main motion. I still got individuals lined up. This is who's lined up tomorrow morning to start off the day with. I have Honorable Slater next, Honorable Elmer Begay, Honorable Mark Freeland, Honorable Jamie Hinyo, Honorable James, Vice Chair Walker. That, colleagues, we will begin here at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Recess until 10 a.m. Friday, July 17th. Colleagues, tomorrow morning there's two meetings tomorrow morning. There's 2 meetings. One is a census meeting, and the other one's a budget finance meeting. work session. So even though, colleagues, it says 9 a.m. tomorrow, there's been a request to start until 10 a.m. And the reason why is because of those meetings that are happening tomorrow morning. Just as a heads up, colleagues, legislation 0114-20, 0141-20, and legislation 0153-20 are not going to be on the summer session agenda. Those legislations go forward to the Navajo Nation Council, but they won't be on the agenda. And the reason why is because we're posting the agenda tonight. And the reason why is because according to the law code, the Navajo Nation Council agenda needs to be posted advance. If you want to add, if we continue to move on and have legislation 0114-20, 0141-20, and 0153-20, those would just be added on when we adopt the agenda during the summer session on Monday. FYI, colleagues. We're recessed. It's 9:52 p.m. We're in recess until tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Speaker, Delegate Freeland.
Honorable Freeland.
We have a Eastern Land Commission meeting at 3 p.m. I think we should probably reconsider that as well. If we're going to be on this legislation all afternoon, and Mr. Rogers did say at 3 p.m.
Hey, that's up to your chair.
Okay.
Hey, colleagues. Thank you. Thank you, staff, for staying late again.
Speaker, what legislation did you say?
Huh?
Speaker, which legislation did you say that was not going to make it to council? 141 and what was it? 144 and what else?
144-20, 141-20, 153-20.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Safe travels, everyone. See you tomorrow. Or see you on the telephone tomorrow.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
See you when we see you.
See you when we see you.
The organizer has ended this Uber conference. Goodbye.